I remember the exact moment my world cracked open, the second my phone buzzed on the oak kitchen table, and I saw that photograph. It was 6:30 in the morning, still dark outside, the streetlights casting a pale glow through the window, and I'd just poured myself a cup of coffee. The metallic tang of the first sip coated my tongue as I glanced at the screen. An unknown number. No name, just a spark of light against the dark kitchen. I tapped it open. The image made my breath hitch. Claire, my wife of 15 years, stood in the college gym, coaching her volleyball team. But beside her, shoulder brushing, was Marcus, a kid just 18. Claire's laughter was frozen mid-arc, and Marcus's triumphant grin looked too intimate to be innocent. The glare of overhead fluorescent bulbs turned them into actors on a stage of betrayal. In that instant, my coffee cup trembled in my hand. I set it down too hard. The mug clattered against its saucer, sending a sliver of coffee sloshing onto the table's edge. My pulse knotted, and I tasted bitterness beyond the brew. Behind me, the anniversary clock ticked in its steady, know-it-all rhythm. 15 years, a marriage built on vows, shared dreams, and children. Now it might as well be a ticking bomb. I swallowed, forcing myself to stay still, palms slick against the ceramic handle. My mind fractured, part of me shouting that this must be a mistake, a cruel prank. But another part raced ahead, brittle with certainty. I needed proof before I inhaled panic. I slid out of my chair, footsteps silent on the hardwood floor. I dialed Claire's number, but it went straight to voicemail. No surprise, she'd left for the college gym before dawn. She loved those morning practices. Before hanging up, I double-checked the image, details I'd never noticed in her texts, the logo on Marcus's shirt, the bleachers in the background. Everything clicked into place like a sinister puzzle. My chest tightened, but I breathed slowly, counting to 4. I refused to let my emotion spill over. Crying or screaming wouldn't help, facts would. I grabbed my keys and coat, the fabric sliding over my shoulder like a protective shell. Behind me, the city's low hum seeped through the window, a distant car horn, the muffled roar of traffic, a dog barking somewhere down the block. The city was waking, oblivious to my private apocalypse. My reflection caught in the front door's glass panel, pale face, eyes rimmed with exhaustion, jaw set so tight it ached. I looked like a man preparing to deliver a eulogy to his own life. I drove with the morning sun still low, headlights fading. At the college's front entrance, I parked across the street, engine ticking as it cooled. The campus felt deserted at this hour, empty sidewalks, iron benches waiting for students, banners advertising the upcoming season fluttering in the breeze. I stepped out, the scent of damp asphalt rising around me. Each breath felt heavy, loaded with dread. As I rounded the corner, the gym's windows spilled yellow light onto the pavement. Through the tinted glass, I spotted Claire in her element, her blonde hair pulled into a tight ponytail, coach's whistle swinging from her neck. She barked instructions, "Marcus, lower your shoulders, drive through with your hips." The volleyball thumped against the court floor, an echoing heartbeat. Marcus, lanky and confident, had just executed a perfect spike. As he pivoted to celebrate, his elbow brushed Claire's arm. Her smile transformed. It wasn't pride or professional encouragement, it was something softer, closer. I felt a cold blade slice through my chest at the sight. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. Memories flooded, late-night movie nights, Sunday pancakes with the kids, the way Claire once traced my cheek after dinner, saying, "You're my anchor." That anchor had drifted somewhere. I reminded myself to breathe. No accusations yet. I needed undeniable evidence. With deliberate steps, I pressed my face against the glass, fogged by my own presence, and watched Claire whisper something into Marcus's ear. His eyes flicked toward me, widening in panic. He ducked behind a teammate, but the damage was done. The photograph I'd received came alive in front of me. A distant whistle snapped me back. Claire turned in my direction, as if sensing my gaze. Our eyes met for a moment, her expression blank, unreadable. The clock in my mind ticked faster. I straightened, drawing back. Every instinct screamed at me to bolt forward, confront her, demand explanations. But I stayed still. No explosive confrontation today. I exhaled, the pressure in my chest easing fractionally as I resolved on my next move: gather proof, consult an attorney, and protect our children. I turned away from the glass and walked back to my car, each step weighted by betrayal and determination. The gym's light receded behind me, and I tucked the image of Claire and Marcus into my jacket pocket, safe but scalding hot. The anniversary clock was still ticking somewhere at home, its rhythm a promise and a warning. Time would not stop for my pain. I would have to transform shock into strategy, grief into action, and trust into something stronger, proof. With that thought, I climbed behind the wheel, heart still hammering, and drove away into the waking city. My life as I knew it was gone, but I would not let it define me. I still remember how the scent of fresh paint used to fill our living room whenever Claire and I tackled a weekend project together. That pastel gray we chose, her idea, seemed to brighten everything, from the sunlight spilling through our bay window to the laughter of our two kids, Lily and Owen, as they danced in mismatched socks. Those memories now sit on my chest like a lead weight, reminders of a life that feels distant and irretrievable. On most Sundays, Claire would rise before dawn to prepare oatmeal pancakes, just like she learned from her grandmother, while I brewed coffee in the corner, the house quiet except for the soft hum of the coffee grinder and the low thrum of traffic outside. I'd wander into the kitchen to find her humming an old jazz tune, flour speckled on her apron, hair falling in soft curls around her face. The kids would shuffle in, sleepy-eyed and sticky-cheeked, and Claire would lift them both onto the counter to stir batter and sneak a lick of maple syrup. These moments felt so ordinary, so secure. Now, every Sunday I brace myself for that same silence, with a hollow ache where warmth used to be. Rewinding further, I see us on date nights, jazz clubs downtown, neon lights painting Claire's face in blues and purples as she swayed to a saxophone solo, the kind of place where I would sit back, watch her radiant smile, and feel a surge of pride at having her beside me. Afterward, we'd share small plates at a tapas bar, clink glasses of red wine, and talk about everything from Claire's coaching ambitions to my work project deadlines. Those conversations, though light, carried an undercurrent of trust, an assumption that us was unshakable. Yet, in hindsight, subtle signs flickered in the background like a warning light too faint to notice. There were weekdays when Claire's extra coaching session stretched later than expected, sometimes until midnight, when the only explanation was a text to a friend, "Meet me at campus." I remember one evening finding a diner receipt for 2 people at 11:43 p.m., the name of the establishment scribbled on her notepad. I assumed she'd met a colleague for a work discussion, but I never thought to question it further. About 2 months ago, I noticed Claire's phone buzzing after midnight. A quick glance showed Marcus's name flashing on the screen. I grabbed it, heart quickening, but she took it back softly, brushing aside my concern with a laugh. "Just coach talk, he's planning his college applications." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat, telling myself not to pry. That same week, I stumbled across her phone unlocked on the kitchen island, just for a second, before she re-entered the room. I saw fragments of a message, "Can't wait to see you," signed with a heart emoji. My throat closed like a vice, yet when I brought it up, she waved her hand and laughed it off. "Marcus sends cute emojis to all his teammates." I let it go. One Saturday afternoon, as I paid bills and balanced our joint account, I noticed an unfamiliar charge, $62 at a 24-hour cafe in town, time-stamped November 3rd at 11:27 p.m. I frowned. Claire's official coaching duties ended by 9 p.m. I scrolled through the online banking interface, pulling up a PDF of receipts, and there it was, repeated 3 times in the last 6 weeks. I tucked the printed statements into a manila folder, the letters Claire Solis typed neatly across the top. Later that evening, at dinner, I asked casually, "Do you remember going to that late-night cafe last month?" She paused mid-bite, fork half raised, eyes widening. Yes, I met a former player for coffee," she said, "just catching up, nothing more." I nodded, but a seed of doubt had taken root. A week later, I overheard Claire and her friend Natalie whispering in hushed tones in the living room. I'd meant to retrieve something from the TV stand but froze at the doorway. Claire said, "He's on my mind so much. Everything's always about how I look, how I feel," and Natalie replied soothingly, "You deserve that. You've been doing so much for the family, let him wait." I slipped away before they noticed. That night, I set my alarm for 2 a.m. and sat by my computer, compiling every suspicious detail, cafe receipts, coaching schedules, late-night text timestamps. My stomach twisted, but I felt, oddly, more in control. Gathering facts was a way to stave off panic. Over the next several days, I pored over Claire's coaching schedule, email attachments, cross-referencing them with photos I had taken of her whiteboard calendar weeks earlier. Discrepancies emerged. On November 9th, she'd reported to the college until 9 p.m., yet her phone's location history placed her at an off-campus address until 1 a.m. I printed screen captures showing the GPS pin near a motel parking lot and discovered the motel's name scrawled on yet another coach's notepad after she left for work. Each fact felt like a stone I dropped into an abyss, making it deeper, harder to climb out. In the middle of this investigation, I caught a fragment of memory, the first time Marcus appeared at our house for a team potluck, Claire beaming as she introduced him. "This is Marcus, we're hoping he'll captain the team next season." He was polite, shook my hand, but mostly hovered near Claire as she served cupcakes. I'd chalked it up to good coach-player rapport. Who could have guessed how deeply that connection would run? Now, as I sit at my desk, papers and printed screenshots spread in neat piles, I feel a low, simmering frustration that's more fuel than anger. I realize how I once prided myself on being oblivious to Claire's secret life and how easily I accepted her explanations. But there's no room for guilt-tripping myself. Each overlooked sign is now a stepping stone toward uncovering the full truth. I glance at the anniversary clock on the mantel, its hands moving steadily. Back then, its ticking symbolized the steady rhythm of our shared life. Today, it's a constant reminder that time is running out, for evidence to hold up in court, for my kids to remain shielded from lies, and for me to reclaim stability. The clock's hands seem to mock me, so slow, yet unceasing. I close the folder and tuck it into a locked drawer. Tomorrow, I'll schedule a meeting with my brother Nicholas and quietly consult a counselor for Lily and Owen. Tonight, I'll lie awake avoiding the dread that comes with silence, and try to remember that even shattered pictures can be pieced back together, one fragment at a time. In the faint glow of the desk lamp, I steel myself for what comes next, turning these suspicions into documented proof, ensuring I'm ready for the inevitable confrontation. The memories of our happy past still ache, but underneath that ache, I find a new certainty. I will not allow this betrayal to define our future. I will piece together every clue, safeguard my children, and forge a path forward, no matter how broken the map feels right now. I woke early the next morning, the anniversary clock's steady tick in the hallway reminding me that time was both my ally and my adversary. After a quick breakfast, toast and black coffee, I returned to my desk, opened the locked drawer, and retrieved the folder marked Claire Documents. Inside were bank statements showing late-night cafe charges under Claire's name, printouts of voicemail transcripts, screenshots of text exchanges where Marcus's number appeared with affectionate emojis, and GPS location records placing Claire near the Lakeview Motel between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. on multiple occasions. Piece by piece, I had compiled enough evidence to confirm what I had already suspected. Claire's relationship with Marcus was no innocent mentorship. I closed the folder and tucked it into a sturdy briefcase, preparing to meet my brother, Nicholas, at his office at 9. Nicholas's firm smelled of polished leather and fresh ink, hardly the environment I ever imagined for discussing my marriage's demise. Yet there I was, sliding into the chair opposite him as he leafed through the materials. He adjusted his glasses and looked up, his expression unreadable for a moment. "You have to be sure of every detail," he said softly. "Courts don't take kindly to allegations without proof." I felt a flicker of apprehension but met his gaze. "I triple-checked everything," I assured him, sliding the GPS logs, cafe receipts, and text screenshots across the desk. "It's all here, time stamps, locations, and the recorded messages." He nodded, flipping through each document with clinical precision. After a few quiet moments, Nicholas set the folder down. "This is more than enough," he said. "We can file a petition for divorce on the grounds of infidelity, and the evidence is damning, especially given the age difference. The judge will see this as Claire's breach of fiduciary duty to the family. Now, we need to structure your approach: financial separation, custody strategy, and evidence preservation." We spent the next hour outlining steps. First, Nicholas advised opening a separate bank account to ensure Claire couldn't drain the joint funds once she realized what was happening. Second, he recommended securing legal counsel for Lily and Owen, arranging consultations with a family counselor to help them navigate the coming transition. Third, we planned to install a discreet security camera inside our home, ideally hidden in a picture frame on the living room mantel, to monitor any potential attempts by Claire to access the house or remove items without notice. Remember, Nicholas cautioned, these cameras must be legal, visible to anyone entering the home or placed with the knowledge that any adult present consents to recording. You don't want privacy violations undermining your case. I nodded, absorbing every detail. Leaving the firm around midday, I made a beeline for the bank. Tellers greeted me with polite smiles as I requested a new individual checking account. I provided identification, made an initial deposit, and set up online banking alerts to track any unusual withdrawals. The bank representative explained that, once active, I could transfer half of our savings into this new account, safeguarding it from sudden depletion. I instructed her to process a draft for a cashier's check to maintain funds for legal fees. That small act, separating my finances, felt empowering, as though I was marking a clear boundary between the life I had known and the life I was reclaiming. Back at home, I retrieved the picture frame camera I had ordered days ago. Its slim design masked the lens. At first glance, it appeared no different from the wedding photograph it replaced. I affixed it to the mantel, angling it toward the front door in the living room center. Once installed, I tested the timestamp function and verified that the video would capture anyone who entered or removed items. Embedding this device felt like fortifying a besieged fortress. Every red LED blinked with purpose. I was ready for anything. That afternoon, I met with Maria at our local cafe to discuss co-parenting logistics. As we sipped tea in a quiet booth, I laid out my custody vision. I would seek primary physical custody of Lily and Owen, with Claire granted supervised visits initially. Maria's expression was sympathetic yet firm. The kids need consistency. They can't be shuttled back and forth unpredictably. She recommended a counselor named Dr. Reyes, who specialized in children of divorce. I snapped notes, schedule intake interviews for the kids, arrange for Claire's supervised visits at Maria's house if necessary, and draft a parenting plan that prioritized their school routines, therapy sessions, and extracurricular activities. Each detail felt like a stitch in a safety net, ensuring Liam and Owen had structure even as our family unit unraveled. By early evening, I was back home assembling a binder for my attorney. I printed out a detailed timeline, dates and times of suspicious activities, summaries of overheard conversations, copies of late-night receipts, and logs from the hidden camera once I had tested it. As I organized these pages, I felt a calm steadiness replacing the chaos that had roiled me earlier. Each document was not just evidence, it was a step toward reclaiming my agency and protecting our children. Later, I met with a financial advisor recommended by Nicholas, Sue, a meticulous planner with a reputation for discretion. At her office, I outlined our joint assets, home equity, retirement accounts, Claire's coaching income, and my middle manager salary. Sue suggested splitting liquid assets evenly but ensuring that my new account held the funds earmarked for childcare, therapy, and household expenses. She recommended freezing mutual credit cards and notifying accountants that Claire's future coaching salary be directed into a separate account she would open. This way, Sue explained, you maintain liquidity for legal fees and daily needs while preventing any unilateral financial moves from Claire. I left with a sense of financial clarity. My resources, though limited by the impending divorce, were now under my control. That night, after putting Lily and Owen to bed, I sat in the silent living room, the security camera's faint red LED blinking at me like a silent sentinel. I replayed the day's progress, opening the account, installing the camera, meeting with Maria and Sue, and finalizing my folder for Nicholas. Each action felt like a turning point. I was shifting from passive observer to active architect of our future. Above me, the anniversary clock ticked steadily into the darkness. Its rhythm was both a reminder of what had been and a heartbeat that propelled me forward. In that still moment, I realized that pain and betrayal had catalyzed a transformation. I was no longer defined by my naivete or by Claire's choices. Instead, I was forging a deliberate path to justice, stability, and eventually, renewed hope. I arrived at Nicholas's office just before our scheduled meeting, the late morning sun filtering through the blinds in narrow slats across the carpet. Claire was already there, seated on the opposite side of a polished oak conference table. Her posture was rigid, she stared straight ahead, fingers interlaced in her lap. Between us lay the manila folder containing the evidence I had meticulously compiled, bank statements, cafe receipts, GPS logs, and incriminating photographs. Nicholas offered Claire a sympathetic nod before turning to me. "This is your opportunity to present everything clearly," he said. I took a deep breath and picked up the folder. As I opened to the first page, itemized bank statements showing late-night charges at the 24-hour cafe, I felt a tense hush settle over the room. On November 3rd and 9th, I began, voice steady but low, Claire was not at the college gym as she reported. The GPS logs place her at the Lakeview Motel between 11:15 p.m. and 1 a.m. I slid the GPS printouts across the table, watching Claire's hand tremble. Her eyes flicked to the paper, a flicker of panic crossing her face. I flipped to the next sheet, photographs of Claire and Marcus in what appeared to be a motel room, Claire's coaching whistle hanging around her neck. The whistle glinted under the camera flash, the same prop she used to establish authority in the gym, now a symbol of her betrayal. This image was sent to my phone on November 11th by an anonymous number, I said quietly. It confirms that you and Marcus were together in that room. Claire's breathing hitched, and tears welled in her eyes. She opened her mouth to speak, but I raised a hand to gently forestall her. Please let me finish, I said, voice measured, almost businesslike. I then laid out copies of screenshots, affectionate messages exchanged between Claire and Marcus, signed with heart emojis. Each text was time-stamped late at night, far outside any coaching-related need. I watched as Claire's composure unraveled, her gaze remained fixed on the table, shoulders slumping. I felt no triumph, only a cold sorrow at watching the woman I loved reduced to this moment. Your actions not only breached our marriage but violated your professional responsibilities, I continued. You were in a position of trust with Marcus. The law will view this affair with a minor harshly. Nicholas cleared his throat. Claire, the evidence is undeniable. You understand the severity of this situation, he asked. Claire's voice tremored as she responded, I made a terrible mistake. I never meant to hurt anyone. Her apology was soft, almost inaudible. I exchanged a glance with Nicholas, neither of us spoke for a moment. The silence carried the weight of irrevocable change. I closed the folder and placed it squarely in front of Claire. I don't want to fight over belongings, I said, tone calm but firm. My priority is Lily and Owen. I intend to seek primary custody and the majority of assets needed to support our children. I paused, then added, if you contest any aspect of this, your affair with a student will be central to the dispute. Understand that I am prepared to proceed through the courts without compromise. Claire's shoulders sagged as she sank back into her chair. She looked at the wedding photo on the windowsill, a framed image of us smiling beneath a bright arch. It seemed incongruous now, as though another lifetime. She wiped her tears and nodded. I agree to your terms, she whispered. I don't want to make this harder for the kids. As we stood, I felt a quiet resolve settle over me. Outside, the city's hum continued, oblivious to our private reckoning. Claire lingered by the window, glancing back at that wedding photo. I met her gaze briefly, a silent acknowledgement that everything had changed. Walking away from the office, I felt the weight of finality lift slightly. The path ahead would be challenging, but I was no longer adrift. I had facts, resolve, and a clear purpose, to rebuild my life and protect my children with unwavering determination. The divorce decree arrived on a crisp Thursday morning, primary physical custody of Lily and Owen granted to me, supervised visitation privileges for Claire, and an even split of our liquid assets, with the bulk of funds allocated to a trust for the children's education and therapy. As I signed the final paperwork at Nicholas's office, a quiet relief washed over me. Outside, the city moved on, indifferent to the small victory that meant the world to me. That evening, I stood at the edge of our backyard, watching Lily push Owen on the swing set I had rebuilt last week. Their laughter rang out like a benediction, and I felt a swelling gratitude for this second chance at fatherhood unburdened by secrets. Inside, the living room shelves held new framed photos, their soccer goals, art projects, and candid smiles, reminders that our life, though altered, was still rich with love. Over the next few weeks, I immersed myself in routines that redefined normal. Mornings began with oatmeal and reading assignments, afternoons, with homework help and after-school art classes, evenings, with bedtime stories and reflections on gratitude. I enrolled in a weekend woodworking class, resurrecting the hobby I abandoned years ago, and found solace in crafting tangible objects from raw materials, always measuring, sanding, and finishing with precision. Each project echoed my journey, broken wood transformed into something sturdy and new. At night, I journaled under the soft glow of a desk lamp, my entries focused not on regret but on incremental progress, establishing a college fund, planning a father-daughter camping trip, and drafting the first post for my blog, Rebuilding After Betrayal, where I shared legal insights, emotional coping strategies, and stories of hope. The anniversary clock in the hallway kept its steady tick. It no longer felt like a countdown but a heartbeat, marking the sweet passage of time in our renewed lives. Though the ache of betrayal still lingered, it had been tempered into a quiet determination. With Lily and Owen by my side, I stepped into each sunrise, ready to build a future defined not by loss but by resilience and love.